Welcome, everyone. So, we're doing another little chit chat with my good friend Doc here. We've done a couple of these already. Doc, say what's up, man.
Hey man, how you doing?
Doing
Been a
great.
minute, huh?
It has been a minute. It's been too long. People have been requesting this, and me and Doc, we have the same thoughts on the market quite frequently, and we like to bounce thoughts off of each other. So it's always nice to touch base and come back and just talk shop. So I'm really interested to see your thoughts on the market and what you think about just everything, the entire environment moving forward, how you've managed to manage your risk on this deeper pullback. And yeah, always a good time.
100%. I think we've done a pretty good job. We originally said that we were gonna like get together once a month, and I think more or less we have been able to do that so far.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, uh,
Let's get into it.
let's get into it. I'm curious what you think on the greater kind of outlook on the market, how you're viewing BTC price action, kind of relating it back to a much bigger time frame. I'm looking at your chart. Let me pull this over right now.
All
Um,
right.
yeah,
So there are two ways to look at this, and there's two mindsets we're in. I think generally everyone's on the same page that we are in a super high time frame uptrend from the FTX lows until now, right? The type of corrections that we've gotten in 2023, like I have them loosely labeled here. There are three types, right? One you have with FUD with USDC depegging. One is kind of like apathy, where we've ran so hard off the lows. Everyone's expecting immediately higher highs. You're chopping yourself up. This took like 2 months to bleed out. But high to low wasn't that bad. And then the third one was over leveraged. If we remember that everyone was super hyped the second time we got to 30K, that here we're getting to 32, we're getting to 34. I think you remember how loud those voices were. And this was actually off the back of BlackRock announcing the ETF like application, right? So we had so much hype in here, and I think we had a lot of leverage expecting higher prices, and had that deleveraging event. This one was an entirely different beast, just by like the sheer like velocity that we pumped up only, continuation after continuation after continuation. We got like total three to break out. So like it's a completely different animal than the last few pumps, right? I think you can see that on like numerous different charts, and you can even speculate that maybe ETH BTC is bottomed like after all of this bloodbath. So we can frame this in two ways. We can either frame this and this is just another type of 30 to 60 day correction within a larger trend, or that this was one massive leg, this was one massive continuous echo bubble with the catalyst, the strongest sell the news catalyst at the top. There was like the futures ETF here, there was Coinbase IPO, right? So we've had these big tradfi crossover sell the news events marking significant tops. So I think that's one camp that you can be in, and this is the other camp. The other camp is this is one steady uptrend, and one camp is this is a definitive multi-month, multi-quarter top. And I wish I could tell you confidently which one that is, and I just can't. And I don't want to make that prediction, simply because I think the biggest mistake I made last year was being overly confident in this region, overly confident in a high time frame bias, and not leaving myself enough room for if then scenarios. So the big change I'm making this time around is just leaving a little bit room for both of these to play out. And obviously, I don't know, you don't know. I don't think anyone knows. We can all just kind of use our systems to guide us. So the first thing that I'm looking at is just the daily 100, daily 200, right? This is like the height. I think some people call it the bull market support band. If you do the math, sometimes it's like the 20-week, right? So there's a bunch of ways like overlap that people use these moving indicators. I'm basically just using it to say, are we still in a high time frame uptrend? And so far we are, and we're reaching those lows right now. So that is the only immediate thing that I'm thinking about is what can we do right now? Are there trades that are like in my wheelhouse that I can take at this moment, given the data available to me, and kind of allow another 30 days or 60 days to play out before I'm really trying to make super high time frame plans.
I love it. When you said that at the previous low that you didn't leave enough room for if then kind of statements, what did you mean by that?
So I use similar to you. I use like an EMA system, right? And the same kind of thing I'm looking for right now, the daily 100, daily 200 to hold as support to push us higher. When we broke down right here, my mentality was twofold. One was we got news absorbed, meaning this move right here was okay, banks are shit, Bitcoin is the truth, whatever. That was kind of the narrative running for this leg right here. This leg right here had no real narrative. It was just kind of like, oh my God, we're reversing off the FTX lows. Let's get back into the market, right? This was the USDC repeg kind of whatever. And this one was the strongest catalyst fueled pump of the year, which was, hey, BlackRock is coming to buy our bags. And when this pump occurred and all we did was just SFP the high on the weekly, maybe I can clean this up. But all we did was SFP that high on the weekly. I was looking at that as like, okay, that's a definitive multi-month top. I'm gonna need to see us hold these trends to continue. And when we just collapse below this, I was like, okay, that makes sense that we've rallied for multiple months. We're probably putting in our 2023 top. This should just chop bleed around for more months. And I was relying too much on older data. I was relying too much on prior cycles to like kind of fuel what I'm looking for. So I didn't expect like when we're in this region right here, I was kind of more like I don't want to look at markets. I'm chilling. This is going to take multiple more months to play out. Like I didn't really have low or high tech. I had like a little bit lower, but that was my picture. And I got back into this super late. Like when we started breaking above this right here and putting in bullish market structure on weeklies, higher highs and higher lows in the weekly, I was like, okay, I might be wrong here. And it wasn't until definitively we got that ETF fake news headline where this didn't fully retrace and held low time frame trends. And I was like, okay, I'm wrong. We're getting a spot bid. We're holding trends. This thing is all systems go. And I had to pivot really late at 28K, and I was not packing bags here. So I think that the issue that I faced last year was just too much locked into a bias too strictly. I did pivot at the right time, and I was able to extract a lot of value out of this. I'm like, I'm happy with the performance, but I don't want that to happen again in this sort of area. Is just lock myself into this has to occur.
Hmm. And see, I have to pay you a compliment, man. You just started trading how long ago?
It depends on like what reference point you want to use. If you want to say like when I wanted to be a trader and take this full time and divert away from medicine, August 2022. If you want to say like the first time I ever took a trade in my life, probably 2000, like in crypto, 2021 April or something.
Okay, so at maximum, you have a couple years experience. Man, if I had the reflection, so I've been trading crypto specifically since November 2017. I've been trading prior to that. I started trading probably late 2016. So I've been trading for 7, almost 8 years now. If I had the ability to reflect on previous kind of ways of thinking, the way that you do, I would have been, exponentially faster through the kind of like learning cycle and paying all my tuition fees and whatnot to the market. Dude, you came out of nowhere in the past couple years and just have just been very respectable in your thought process and your mentality and approach to markets. I got to pay you that compliment. But no, I remember we talked about this together on that last breakout when BTC started breaking out above that 7 month long range and it started cracking 31K highs. I remember the words that you said to me, and I echoed it. Was now we get to just ride the trend, right? Like we get to just
Yep.
throw up our arms and say, okay, like let it happen. Um, and yeah, it's been a fun ride, but for the most part, I would say that it is done. I'm gonna transition over to my screen now.
Yeah.
For the most part, I would say that it is done. Um, the way that I look at this is that the only time frame which I can still give you a bullish argument is these very very high time frames. So it's almost reminiscent to the fact that, or to the idea of like, hey, we're downtrending on all relevant time frames, but Bitcoin uptrends historically. Like it's almost to that point where
Yep.
it's like almost that extreme. That's not the case just yet, but just like you, I use moving averages, so I use 200s only, so 200 MA, 200 EMA. And 200 MA, 200 EMA on the daily, that's what I'm looking at as the kind of inflection point for the market. Now, I do have a little bit of a support level here at 38K prior to that, but the way that I view it is support, and that doesn't necessarily mean like if we bounce from support, then it doesn't necessarily mean that we're strong, right? It just means that support did the absolute bare minimum, exactly what it was supposed to do. Support price. It would actually be more kind of pathetic on Bulls' behalf if they just let kind of price fall straight through. So it's a support level, but it's not really the main point, the main inflection point that I'm watching. Just the same way, like the past 3 months, we've been saying, hey, that's a resistance, but we got to respect the trend. What do you actually want to trade? What's actually going to give you generational wealth, right? Trading this resistance or respecting the trend? And clearly, we know the answer after 3 months of up only in 80% rally, Um, but that's just kind of my mentality at the moment is like we had the. Now, I do want to get a recap of your thoughts heading into the ETF, during the ETF, and right after the ETF.
Yep.
Those speculative kind of thoughts. But my kind of recap was initially upon the approval, I was fully expecting green candlesticks. And truthfully, that's not entirely what happened. We actually kind of chopped around for a little bit. Remember that the SEC leak, and then we kind of like Darth Mauled. We got like a 3% wick upwards, and then we went, negative 3% downwards, and everyone's freaking out. It's like, haha, it was a sell the news event, blah, blah, blah. But right after that, we got what I actually expected. I woke up the next morning and BTC had almost gone to the next level. And, my chart is 50K. We got to like 49K. So that's what I was expecting. And I had the kind of mantra that we're probably not bullish enough in the short term. People, still considering this a sell the news event upon the initial listing. And oh my God, as soon as it gets approved, just take a short and you're good to go. In my head, that's what it means as a sell the news event. So we're talking semantics here. But the way that I was approaching it was probably in the short term, we're not bullish enough. Truthfully, I did not think we would only go to 49K. I thought we would at least get to 50. That was the next level. I thought maybe that was, me not thinking big enough and maybe we go to like 52, 55. I don't know. But that was the initial thought. And then right after that, I kind of resonated back to, I don't remember who told me this, but it was someone in one of my groups. Um, Something about humans have the tendency to overestimate their abilities in the short term and underestimate them in the long term.
Mm,
And I heard that
yep.
quote and I was like, wow, that's really beautiful. Like there's so much truth in that. And then I resonated or I related the spot ETF back to that quote. And I said, I think that, humans are probably going to overestimate how impactful this event is going to be in the short to midterm and then underestimate it in the long term, right? Because the reality
Yeah.
is BlackRock's here to buy our bags. I don't know about you, but that is reality, right? Like they're actually here to buy our bags now. But to think that, spot ETF go live, okay, BlackRock has whatever 19 trillion gazillion dollars under management, whatever, they're just going to start market buying billions and billions of dollars of BTC. That seems naive, right? They're probably going to buy billions and billions of dollars of BTC eventually, but probably not the same week that the ETF gets listed. That was my initial thought. No, and in my opinion, that's where we're at now. And I always kind of just call back to the fact that um, everything in the market is exactly the same. So like people getting caught off guard by normal market movements, number go up, number go down. It's not a catalyst. It wasn't really like overwhelming. It wasn't really like it's just normal movements. Actually, we can dig into this later. I still want your thoughts on the spot ETF, but this is the same top signature that we've seen every single time for the past 2 years. And I discussed that on Twitter like a month ago. And then
Yep.
I updated that thought as this was occurring. So it's normal market movements. It's the same thing that we've seen over and over and over and over and over again. And that's the beauty of it, is that the market doesn't really change all too much, bar the exception of like a news event, a catalyst, a black swan, those kinds of things. It really just is number go up, number go down. You have to find a way of navigating that. But yeah, the
Yep.
the market's job and the reason that the market continues to exist today is because it has an uncanny tendency to lull its participants into a specific form of thinking and then do the opposite. And it's not just bear market, bull market. It's not just up or down. It's also trend sideways, sideways trend, low volatility, high volatility, right? So that's how I always think about it. It's just normal market movement, and it's our job to kind of navigate it. But I do want your a recap of your thoughts heading into ETF, during, and then after, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So going into the ETF, like, I guess, are you looking at my chart again?
Yeah.
So yeah, so all the way down here, when we got this like ETF fake news candle, it all started on like super low time frames for me. I think we talked about this last time, so I won't go into too much detail. But we like didn't lose local trends. We didn't like lose the hourly trend, right? So we just continued pushing higher, pushing higher. I was like, I need to be fully risk on for this. This is real, right? This is not going to be, because there's so much disbelief. There's too many people that are like, it's going to retrace. Let me go short. We've been through this before. We did this in summer. And I felt like disbelief is always the right mentality you want like market participants to have in healthy trends. You always want people trickling in and submitting slowly and trickling in, adding more liquidity, adding more liquidity. So I was happy like nailing this and switching to alts. And like all this was, I didn't have a high time frame target of like, are we going to 38? Are we going to 44? Are we going to 50? I left that for other people to speculate on. The only thing that I wanted to keep in mind as far as Bitcoin goes is, are we holding the daily trend? Because we lost the 4 hour somewhere in here. But
Hmm.
are we holding the daily trend? And as long as we're holding the daily trend, I'm going to continue having fun trading altcoins and speculating altcoins and writing INJ and other things like that, right? So that was really my thought. I was like, I'm gonna ignore Bitcoin. This is something that I do, if I could like pat myself on the back. It's something that I do well anytime the market goes risk on, is I allow Bitcoin to lead the way. And once I like understand that Bitcoin is either ranging, which I looked at this as a range before we broke in higher, and then I looked at this as a range. Anytime I think that Bitcoin is just crabbing or ranging, I'm like, I'm going to ignore it. And I'm gonna ignore its oscillations, I'm gonna ignore its day-to-day movement, and I'm just gonna focus on what altcoins are showing me strength and outperforming Bitcoins, right? So that was my mindset going into that. Um, the whole idea always was like, when I started hearing people go, it's not sell the news, it's buy the news. That immediately always for me is a trigger to say, no, it actually is sell the news. Anytime there's a clear event that we're rallying into, whether it's an upgrade for a coin, whether it's the merge, whatever it may be, if participants start psyopsing themselves and go, I'm late to this trend, like I missed half of this. Okay, it has to be by the news. These things are good. Why would we sell? Like it, once they start playing those mental gymnastics games with themselves, I automatically start assuming it's sell the news. So my mentality for the whole thing was, it's sell the news, and I tweeted it out multiple times, said it multiple times, and even like the fun part about markets is when the day comes, you start doubting yourself. You're like, okay, I
Yeah.
prepared for this to be sell the news the entire time. Am I wrong? Are we really that strong? Are we going, X, Y? Are we going here and there? And that did briefly occur to me. That hurt for a moment. I was like, okay, can I expand my mindset? What if I am wrong, right? But the good thing is that I had my plans and they weren't based on Bitcoin. I don't know if you know, but like a bunch of people know that I flipped to ETH and ETH beta, right? So I had this one high time frame target on ETH on the monthly, and I kept on tweeting this one chart. I was like, this is our monthly zone on ETH, right? And I just tweeted this every month, tweeted in October, November, December. And based on this, I had a position in ETH, but based on this, I was like, I'm going to have ETH beta plays, right? And those for me were LDO, ARB, and OP. And they had phenomenal like weekly setups. And basically, when ETH tagged that level on the monthly, that coincided with the ETF approval. And I was like, okay, my trades are done. I'm not going to think about buy the news, sell the news. I don't care what happens here. My analysis met my game plan, met my execution, and I'm out. So I didn't. From then, I was like, whatever happens, happens. If we're gonna pump another 20% from here, I don't care. I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish, and that's what allowed me to like just get out of the market from there, and it worked out pretty well. But from a psychological point of view, all I did was prepare that this is a sell the news event, and then when it actually came, I started doubting myself. But the thing that saved me was having a game plan. And we all know how it worked out. Like all these trends started breaking down. The H4 100, 200 broke down, right?
Yep.
So it ended up being a sell the news event. But I think to TLDR, I said a lot there, but the TLDR is the most important thing. I think whenever we have a clear event and we rally into that event and we all agree that it's sell the news, and then we start psyoping ourselves into thinking it's not, it 100% of the time is.
Yeah. I remember a similar kind of sentiment around the Ethereum merge. I don't remember
Exactly.
exactly when that was, but I remember the argument or the discussion being, will Ethereum merge be a sell the news event? And I think the main point that I want to get across is that if it's going to be a sell the news event, it has to rally into it, right? Like,
Yeah.
so here's my issue. It's not that oh my god, you said it was a sell the news event. Oh, you said it was going to be a buy the news event. Like, that's not really the issue. The issue is that people sat on the sidelines for 2 months or 3 months straight as price literally did not break very many trends and just kind of slowly grinded upwards. Greed sets in over time, fear sets in immediately, kind of thing. Just slow grinding upwards, and the whole time they're justifying it with, oh yeah, we're just gonna, it's a sell the news. Why do I care? Why do I care? Why do I care? It's like, dude, you just missed out on like a 60% rally. You could have just, you could have went and traded some high time frame altcoin trends or whatever. um but I want to get your thoughts on managing risk to the downside on altcoins. How do you refrain from living the life cycle of a turkey, which is when you either are making a ton of money during the trend, or you're neglecting the trend and you only decide, hey, I'm gonna overcompensate for all my underperformance or whatever, and you do that at the exact top, and then the very next Bitcoin candlestick. So one of the craziest things to me is that I'm still looking at your screen. That red candlestick to your right, to the right of your cursor, yeah, that one was like the greatest altcoin liquidation event in like the
Yep.
past 2 years.
Yep.
How? How? When you
Crazy.
go look at those
Crazy.
altcoin charts, a lot of them just
Yeah.
pulled back into higher time frame trend support. Like, a lot of
The,
them
the,
put in higher lows, and that was
yeah.
the altcoin liquidate. Like, unbelievable life cycle of a turkey. And again, the beauty of it is that this is why we're here, man. Like, because people are always going to do this kind of stuff, right? And we get to thrive off of it. But
Yeah.
it's unreal to me that that is the case, and it's honestly, it's sad for the people who want to learn and are willing to sit here and watch two random dudes ramble about crypto markets for an hour and a half straight. Like, it's sad that that tends to happen pretty frequently. So how is it that you have, not when you get stopped out of a trade or you're invalidated or whatever, how do you develop the mental fortitude necessary in order to manage risk, not go into it and set yourself up for failure, and then when it comes time to accept that risk and accept those losses, right, because you're never going to lock in your new all-time high net worth, when that time comes, how do you actually mentally go about doing that and putting into practice, and like, what kind of psychology do you implement?
Okay, so I'm gonna answer your question in a roundabout way. The first thing I want to mention to people is like the reason these happen and they get caught in these liquidation cascades is because they continue to argue with the trend for months beforehand, right?
Exactly.
They do this thing where it continues to feel risky, right? Every time, like, you've been conditioned in this choppy regime. Like, I'm using Arbitrum for an example. You're just conditioned for every pump to get slapped down, every pump to get slapped down, right? And then down here, you're just like, it's choppy, it's choppy, it's choppy. I don't want to enter. I'm buying a top, I'm buying a top, I'm buying a top. And you get conditioned over weeks and weeks and weeks to continue seeing it working. Basically, when it feels risky, you're rewarded, right? And after months and months and months, you finally go, okay, I'm going to step into the market because I've seen this just work continuously. Every dip is being bought up. We're just continuing to make higher highs and higher highs and higher highs. And you get into this mindset where you're like, I need to catch up. Everyone has made so much money. I'm going to, I've seen the market's proven to me now that it's going up only. It's proven to me now that everyone's making money. I'm finally willing to step in, but I need to make up for all this lost time. I need to make up for the 77 move all the way to $1.50. I need to make up for this 2x, and I'm going to do that with leverage, right? And I'm just going to buy the next dip, whatever the next dip is, and I'm going to buy it on leverage, right? You may be thinking like a system like mine. Okay, this demand block, I'm going to put bids here, right? And I'm going to bid on leverage, right? And those are the ones that wipe you out. And there's this mental heuristic that Kobe said in the top of the bull market in 2021 that stuck with me, and people are probably tired of hearing me say this, but it's like, when it feels when it stops feeling risky, it is maximally risky. That is the like best mental heuristic that you can have in markets, is that like the best entries never feel good. People that, bull post and they're buying dips, they're not feeling comfortable in that moment. They're fighting their own self-doubt. They're feeling like, okay, this could rug, but at least I'm bidding as close to invalidation as possible, right? I'm taking the opportunity. But other people will come into the market and continue fading that. They're so scared to take a risk. They're so scared to enter on bloody days. They're so scared to bid into, high time frame trend pullbacks. But that by the time they do and they've seen that, okay, it no longer feels risky anymore, that's when it's maximally risky. And I just continue seeing this time in and time out in crypto. And the beauty of crypto, I think there's like someone's tweet, and you even liked it today, that was like, the beauty of the market is just keeps repeating. It's the same game again and again and again. So for me, like when you're saying, oh, you don't get caught in these moves, it's just because I've seen it so many times. Like I've just seen it happen enough times now. And people look at crypto and they go, oh, but how do you learn? There's only one bull market. There's one in 2021, and the next one hasn't come. Oh, you weren't around in 2017. How do you have the experience? Well, it's like, yeah, maybe it's happening on the weekly and the monthly, but each one of these has been a mini cycle. Each one
Mm,
of these has the exact same characteristics of any other bubble. Each one of these is in and of itself its own risk on cycle, risk off cycle, and people are exhibiting the same behaviors. So you're just learning repetitively over and over and over again. And there's a bunch of ways people can say this, pay the stupid tax, or pay, the tuition to the market, or however you want to say it, but it's just experience, right?
yeah.
I actually forgot what your original question is, but
No, it's
that's
okay.
the thing I wanted to.
It's totally good. I forgot too, but now I want to now I want to cycle back to something you said. So it's like what you're saying is, and I echo this by the way, because when I ask you a question, I already have my own internal answer, and I'm curious to see what you say. But you say something, or you said something pretty close to what I would say, which is like the best way to fix what's happening today is to cure the cause and not treat the symptom. And the reason that like people tend to over leverage, today, and they're getting wrecked on the first meaningful pullback and like whatever, and unable to fathom that, oh my god, how could price go lower, right? I forgot that markets can actually go down too. Like the reason that that's happening is more times than not because of how they initially approached the price action upwards in the first place.
Yeah,
So there's two kind of sides to it. If you're getting wrecked today, there's the side where you are complete degenerate, right? You just decided every single dip, right? Like every time BTC tests this trend, I'm just gonna, 3x leverage my entire account, like bet my entire, net worth, and then number go up, and oh, look at this, I'm a multimillionaire now. Well, eventually the time comes where the trend actually breaks, and it doesn't matter what price is at. You're gonna live the life cycle of a turkey, and your portfolio is gonna go to zero. The other
yeah,
side of that is you didn't really cure the cause, you're trying to treat the symptoms, so you're more focused on the fact that you're losing money today because trends are breaking. But really the reason that you're losing money today because trends are breaking is because you never respected the trend in the first place when it started to uptrend 3 months ago, right? It's like the people who still decided, okay, yeah, sure, we're breaking out of, a 7 month long range high and uptrending across literally all time frames, but there's an RSI bear div on, the 30-minute chart. Let me go short. And then they
yeah,
do that for months on end, and then suddenly it's like, okay, well, now price is 40% higher. What do I do now? It's like okay, well, I don't know, I guess I'll buy some, right? And then whatever, and it's just this constant like death spiral, but it all starts from that initial kind of spark.
yeah,
It's trying to actually treat the cure. And it's like I like to relate it back to kind of like surfing. It's like the wave is already out there. You didn't go surf as the wave was forming, right? You didn't take the risk that, maybe a wave never comes and you're just not going to have any fun that day, right? You didn't take that risk initially, but as the wave is in the middle of its wake, here you are trying to come surf out and come ride the wave with me. And me, right, having traded a trend and respected a trend for 3 months straight, and after 80% of reward, I don't care if that wave crashes. It does not bother me. I'm fully aware that this wave is going to crash at some point in time. But if you're just now starting to surf out and try and ride that wave with me, you better hope that it continues, uh, you know not to crash, and we get to keep having fun, and you're relying on the market. And that's totally contradictory to what it means to be a trader. You can't rely on markets. That's what investors do, right? So that's the way that I see it. So your answer is very much like parallel to what I would say and how I think about it. That actually looks
Yeah,
pretty
absolutely.
interesting. That Sui setup.
Yeah, this is a nice one. But one thing I wanted to mention real quick is like about these big trends and pullbacks and everything. One of the best lessons that I got for myself was along that merge rally on ETH. Right, this was an event driven, catalyst driven event, right? So when we started breaking market structure and started putting higher highs and higher lows in the weekly, like I was bullish on ETH. I was just accumulating spot, right? I didn't have any leverage trades on ETH back then. But
Wait. Can I pause you?
this,
Can I pause you
yeah,
really
of course.
quick? So, like you just said, how everything is a mini cycle of itself. That rally that you're
Yeah.
looking at right now, which is a breakout of a 1 month long range. I just want to point this out to everyone watching. It's a breakout of a 1 month long range and reclaim of a high time frame trend, and it's a 60% move in one
Yeah.
month. 60.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. There's ample opportunity in this market. Okay, I'm sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
No, no, of course. But like this, there's so many synonymous, moments in this rally. This is like a microcosm compared to what we got for the ETF, right? But this specific day, I remember so much because I got shaken the hell out on this move. I had just been dabbling with EMAs, but it was not a core part of my system. And when I went back and started learning the peer crypto system and started implementing my own with EMAs and stuff like that, like I always remember this day. And shout out Pierre, or not Pierre, sorry, Philippe, if you're listening, because me and him both remember this as such a learning moment of it just pulled back into demand. It just pulled back into the trend. We have a catalyst, a few months away still. Like it was scheduled to be in September, I think. Like the top was in August, but that's neither here or there. Why were we getting shaken out on the first pullback out of a high time frame range break with a catalyst into trend within market structure, right? This shakeout for me and missing this whole pump and reversal and everything like that and having to get back in later, this stuck out to me so much that I always look for it on every trend, on every time frame. Every time we break out of anything, I'm always looking for that big, nasty shakeout within trend, within market structure. And that like prevents me from getting shaken out on any of these rallies. Like any of these moves here on ETH. Like these ones look so ugly. But I remember betting strongly here, and I remember the sentiment back here was, oh, we just got this crappy ETF announcement from BlackRock for ETH, and that was this candle, and we just sold off the whole thing. And I had someone arguing me, some like nimwit arguing with me in Discord about how, oh, it's over for ETH. And I go, yeah, right. I've been here before. I remember the demand block. I remember the EMA. I'm
Yeah.
betting the house here, dude. Like I know what's coming next. So I just was like one of those things of like you just learn from experience. Like you're not going to get it the first time.
Okay, so you just dropped a string of words that stuck out to me. I'm betting the house here. Now, obviously, I know that you're kidding. You're just kind of over exaggerating, but I want to know what's your take on conviction and position sizing? Because I'll give you my take. As a beginner, I think that the generic, hey, just risk 1% or just risk $100 or like whatever, a very static
Yeah.
amount. You do this every single time, 100% of the time. This is how you approach markets all the time. I think that's a good way to just get the experience and get things flowing and develop that kind of intuition and get a feel for your system and developing pattern recognition. What you just showed me, literally the chart looks exactly the same as the example you just gave. Um,
Yeah.
but as someone who's advanced, you start to realize that not every opportunity is equal, and so you doesn't really make sense to have a static kind of approach to every single opportunity if every single
Hmm.
opportunity is not equal. So I scale my position sizing along with conviction. But then the issue is, how do you actually quantify conviction? And there's a way to do that. They're called quants, but someone who's discretionary like me or you, nobody can take our system and just throw it on a chart and just suddenly become a magically an amazing trader. Moving averages
Yeah.
actually do not work most of the time, which is why it's the discretion. The alpha
You.
there is in knowing when
Yeah.
not to use them. So, how exactly are you able to determine to yourself? Because I can only do my best to put it into words. What what creates a high conviction setup for you?
Okay,
And
so I'm not gonna give everything away. I think
okay,
this is
yeah,
one of the
yeah.
yeah,
I
this is one
got
of
you.
the
I got
beautiful
you.
yeah, this is one of the beautiful things. So I remember reading a tweet back in like 2022 by GCR that was like he was like mocking everyone. He was like, you don't have an edge. If you had an edge, you wouldn't tell everyone what it was, right? So
Mm,
without going into like complete details, I have things that I always want to look for, like a couple confluence that I want to look for when entering a trade. And I know just from data collection of journaling and journaling my trades and journaling my mindset and reflecting daily and literally every night before bed, writing in my journal the events of the day and knowing what worked for me and what didn't, what's screwing me up and whatnot. I know the moments where I get things on a plate that I want and I don't bet enough. And this is one of the things that in 2023 is one of the biggest reflections is that I'm not trusting myself enough. I'm not trusting my system enough. I need to be able to trust my system more. So when I do get the things that I want to see in the setups I want to see, I'm not betting, like you said, 1R. I do think that 1R is a meme. It's a great way to learn. Like anytime, like I have a video on like, stuff to help beginners, and I basically say that don't paper trade, trade with a certain amount of money that will hurt a little bit, but it's not going to like bankrupt you. You'll make it more in your job or whatever. But that's to learn how to trade. Eventually, when you do, there's setups that you're only going to get every quarter, right? There's setups that you're only going to get every cycle. Like this one on ETH on the monthly. Like this is a monthly setup. How often are you going to get this, right? And if you cannot trust monthly setups and bet bigger here than you would on a weekly or in a daily or any other day, like when are you going to make those high conviction bets? That's really what I would like to say on that,
right.
right? There's certain things that are you feel through your own experience, data collection, that you have a higher success rate in certain scenarios. And you can also tell where you're wrong. Like, that's the key thing to betting bigger in certain environments is to have the fortitude to be like, I am betting more, I am risking more, but I also know when I'm wrong. And I know when the market's going to tell me that I'm wrong. And I'm not going to argue with the market and I'm going to accept the loss that comes with it. So that's kind of what I mean by betting the house.
Yeah. Well, beautiful. There's two things that I want to talk about there. The GCR quote, "You don't have an edge." I
Yeah.
say this all the time. People ask me like, "Hey, what's your edge?" I'm like, "Dude, I don't have one." Like, I literally like my mindset. Me, like, I am the edge. The edge is the
Yeah.
user. It's not like my system is unbelievably simplified. Like, very much like I'm convinced a 15-year-old could use it and make money in markets, right? but
Mine too.
but really it's a matter of understanding the actual psychology and the entire like mental approach behind using the system, because like I said, like the system itself is not alpha. So like, and then somebody even asked me like, hey, what do you think about, right, I hosted like a Q&A or something on Twitter one time, and somebody asked me like, what do you think about alpha decay? Like, you do so much creating content and making education for people. Obviously, people are going to start using your system and implementing your thoughts and your ideas and blah blah blah. What do you think about alpha decay? And I literally responded to this person. I said, you can't have alpha decay if you don't have alpha. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, the system itself is not alpha. It's the user and how they actually use the system, which is, and I'm honestly convinced that I could, and I have, right, I have a whole playlist on YouTube, every single way that I think about markets, everything that I do, how I perceive things, all of the stupid little analogies to make it more easily relatable and back to real life and easier to comprehend. I've done all of that. I still don't have any alpha decay, right? Like, I can lay everything out there for everyone to go and watch and study, tens and 15 and 20 and hundreds of hours of studying and whatever, it still would not matter, right? Like, I'm
Right.
fully able to be totally transparent of how I think about markets and how I approach my own system and all that stuff. There's no alpha decay because there's no alpha. It's just a mindset. But the other thing is, I find it really interesting that I asked you about conviction, and what you told me was journaling, and how much journaling is an alpha for you because it allows you to differentiate, like, hey, based off of, back testing and my own experience in markets, I'm not doing enough when this, and this have, kind of, come to fruition. And maybe my crypto Twitter timeline has this kind of sentiment. And, this is a, thing in the news and pending catalyst and blah, blah, blah. That is alpha right there. Something that maybe not everyone knows this, but for the past 4 years, every single day, well, really the past year, this is not true, but the past 4 years, every single day, I have always journaled an update in this market. And it's most of the time it's just Bitcoin. If something more prevalent is happening, I'll discuss, hey, ETH BTC, here's this crazy altcoin, new hottest catalyst, whatever, here's this news event. But most of the time it's just, what are my thoughts on Bitcoin? 99.99% of the time it's just an update on Bitcoin. Here's what it was doing yesterday, what's it doing today? That's it. That has been the case for the past 4 years. And the only reason why I say that it's different the past year is because I've given myself a break on weekends. I don't do it on weekends anymore unless something crazy has happened and it absolutely warrants an update. But just simply journaling my own thoughts and just writing them out in the market and forcing myself to explain my thoughts on Bitcoin as though I need a 5-year-old to understand it. Someone who's never experienced markets before and doesn't know anything, doesn't know what a moving average is, doesn't know like what's the difference between a bounce and a trend reclaim, like just the basic bare bones beginner stuff, explaining it to that kind of degree. And what I found is I actually understand it better for myself because I've forced myself to put it into words. I'm forcing myself to analyze this market, break shit down across different time frames, have a kind of puzzle that I'm piecing together slowly but surely across all time frames, and I'm doing that consistently day in, day out. So there absolutely is alpha there. There absolutely is, hey, I've seen this before. I remember this. I remember what my timeline looked like. I remember the structure. I remember the sentiment. I remember all of that. It absolutely is alpha. And for anyone who's watching this right now, I would highly recommend, and Discord is great for this, by the way, and that's where I was doing this. Just create your own private Discord channel. You don't even have to invite anybody to it, just you alone. And just every single day, just update your thoughts on the market. Listen, if you're going to be watching the market day in, day out, anyways, you might as well write a couple sentences every single day and send yourself some screenshots of what the chart looks like, even if you're doing it from a mobile phone. It absolutely will benefit you. And I find it so very interesting that I asked you about conviction, and what you just told me is your journaling and your backtesting,
Yeah.
your personal data allows you to justify your conviction, and that is the alpha. That is your edge.
Yeah, I think the last thing I'll say on like edge is that there are people out there with actual edges on the market. There are gigabrains, like shout out Runner XBT, who developed an edge, I think, through working with GCR on, shorting catalysts and shorting unlocks and stuff like that. Like he was so good at shorting Sheeb and I think Luna Classic. Like he has an actual edge in the market, right? In one
Yeah.
way or another. People like myself who are just trading price action and EMAs and a combination of two and trying to find high hit rate, setups. The edge is not the system at all, right? Everyone is trading ICT. Everyone knows price action. A lot of people are trading EMAs. The edge is not the system whatsoever. Like I did a thread I think the opening of 2023, end of 2022, where I was talking about Pierre and his system because I just like been learning from him. And I go, he's not doing anything fancy. Like his edge is his discipline and execution and his like dedication day in and day out to only take high quality setups and not get baited by the market and stick to his system. Like that is what's making him profitable. He's not worried about nailing a home run. He's getting on base every day. Like
Mm.
that's the system. That's the edge.
Yeah, I talk about this all the time. Trading is not poker. It's very different. In poker, you are forced to pay to sit down and play, and then you are forced every single time that that big blind and that small blind comes around. You have to ante up. You have to put your chips in to some degree. This is not that. The only reason that you have an edge in markets is because you have the ability to choose when not to play. So, and then again, a different kind of kiddish analogy is I always relate back to Shaquille O'Neal. Shaquille O'Neal is probably one of the most underrated basketball players of all time. He dominated the entire sport for, a decade. But he wasn't allowed to play in crunch time and like the, clutch moments, 2 minutes left and
Yeah.
tie score. He's not allowed to play because he sucks at shooting free throws, and the other team would just foul him, and he'd go to the free throw line. It was a free, ball back, and now, hey, we get to score now. You guys didn't score. You wasted your play. This is not that either. The market cannot punish your weaknesses. You literally get to dictate when you want to play. And that was the alpha, was that patience and that discipline. In 2022, I probably averaged two, maybe three trades a month. And I think of that average, I think 80% of it came within like 2 months, where, I just had like a spurt and, setups were showing up like crazy. But all the other months, I probably either didn't trade at all or maybe took one or two trades at best. But that is exactly the point. And then come Q1 of 2023, my portfolio starts hitting new all-time highs. After
Yeah.
negative 80% of spot drawdown in my ledger account, now in Q1 2023, oh, I'm at actually my net worth is just the same amount that it was at November 2021 at the exact Pico top.
Yeah.
Unreal. Which and
Yeah.
and that is the power of markets, is the ability to compound and compound gains. But what gets overlooked is keeping those gains, and everyone's so focused on making them, but really just got to focus on keeping it, knowing when not to play.
Yeah, exactly. And I think through simple systems like this, you start cleaning up stuff, right? And that's where the conviction comes from. You have 7 setups. You learn one from Trader Main, you learn one from Pierre, you learn one from yourself, one from me, one from whatever. And eventually you're like, well, this one works way better. And you're like, well, why am I taking the other ones, right? And you just start cutting. They say cut your losers, ride your winners. The same thing with like setups and markets, right? And you'll just find one that's way more profitable than the others, till eventually you're just trading like one or two things. Like when people ask me like, what are you trading? I'm like, there's really, like, nowadays I'm just taking like 2 setups. There's two things that I really just do over and over and over again.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, man. I don't want to keep you here too much longer. I just have a question for you. What is the deal with the Clinic Discord channel? Because I'm getting ready to shill some stuff, but I want you to be able to shill anything that you want to shill as well. I know that you're sponsored by Woo Exchange, so shout out to them. Guys, if you want a Woo Exchange account, please go use Doc's ref link. I'm saying it on his behalf, so you cannot meme him for it.
I appreciate it.
Because I'm getting ready to shill my ref links too. But yeah, man, what is the deal with that?
So yeah, 100%. So the clinic, for people that don't know, was an open and free Discord for everyone, completely public. And through the bear market, just been like grabbing legends left and right to contribute. And it got pretty noisy. Like we got 1,800 people in there, and have had to prune recently. And I can't respond to everyone's questions. People at me all the time with questions. So what I did was I made a private channel in the clinic. First of all, I made the clinic private, and then I made a private channel in the clinic just for people that are on the Woo Ref link. And signing up there, you get streams from me, you get educational content, you get to pick my brain anytime, direct line to me. I had indicators for people before, but I just released them publicly for anyone that's in the clinic now. But yeah, also there's like rebates on trading, all the Woo stuff. But yeah, if you want more access to me, that's the way to do it.
All right, sounds good, man. And before we go, I also have two ref links and a private and a free Discord myself. There's the free Trend Respecters Discord, and in there I give daily market updates every single day, as well as live market updates when anything very relevant in the market is happening. I discuss my thoughts. You get to bounce back and forth with me. I'm pretty frequently active in there. But then in the private Discord, which you can access via using my Femex or my Bybit referral links, and all this stuff will be in the description below. We then do live streams 3 times a week, same daily market updates. I show all my trade ideas, all the kind of setups I could possibly find in the market. I scan the market every single Friday and look for the top performing altcoins, as well as Bybit is being nice enough to host and sponsor an iPhone 15 giveaway on my behalf. So that giveaway Google form will be in the description as well. And all that requires is you can either register a new Bybit account, or if you currently have a Bybit account, you just submit the user ID and the email. I never see any of this. It goes straight to the Bybit backend, and you can, potentially win an iPhone 15. So that's going to be it for us today. I appreciate you guys watching. Doc, I appreciate your time. I kept you here for like 30 or 45 minutes before we even started streaming. So
All
shout
good,
out to
man. I
you,
love it.
man. Yeah, it's always a good time chatting with you. So I really do appreciate you, man. We have to do this again sometime, and
Next
flip
month.
flop next time on your
Boom.
channel. All
Yeah,
right, man.
100%, man. Take care.
Take it easy.